This week, United Airlines provided one of the most talked about stories in months. Police dragged a full-paying customer off a flight in order to make room for United employees. It was a public relations nightmare, compounded by the media. Within hours of a man being dragged down the aisle of a United Airlines flight set to take off from Chicago to Louisville, the videos went viral.
Oh my God! Look at what you did to him! Oh my God!
One of the instant story angles was the airline practice of overbooking flights.
The passengers report he did nothing unusual that day other than refuse to give up his seat on the overbooked flight.
But the flight was not overbooked. It was full. 4 unbooked airline employees showed up at the last minute, and managers said they had to get seats.
It sounds like this happened randomly, or they were randomly chosen.
Except he wasn't. While that's what a flight attendant claimed, it's never random.
Airlines will be more likely to bump you if you have no status in the frequent flyer program, if you've paid a super low fare, or if you're in economy class.
In other words, it's a safe bet first-class flyers won't get the hook.
Just kill me. Just kill me.
Naturally, the Louisville media wanted to know who the passenger was, and it turns out it was someone who'd been in the news before. But singling out his troubled past seemed a bit tasteless. Details then picked up by other media.
Dow's license was suspended in 2003 after his arrest for trading drugs for sex with a patient.
The Louisville Journal-Courier later explained why it referenced David Dow's past, saying his arrest had been big news. But that doesn't make it relevant on a national scale.
No!
Meanwhile, Dow's past will soon be prologue as he and lawyers get ready to fire up a lawsuit. Question being, how wide will they cast the net? First of all, I can't believe how much, hype this story got. I mean, it's not going to go away. And somebody was saying today it's going to be out of the news cycle very shortly. I don't think so. I think it's going to continue. I think we're going to hear more from Dr. Dow, too. But for some reason, this whole idea that the flight was overbooked and that's what was being reported really rankled me because it wasn't. Those 4 employees were never on the manifesto. And overbooking is a thing in the airline. But then everybody was doing these sidebar pieces, and it had nothing to do with it. And then quoting the airline stewardess as saying that it was a random selection when, anybody who knows anything about the airlines knows there's no such thing. It's all an algorithm based on basically how much you pay. And they're not going to throw off, let's say, a minor traveling alone. They're going to kick off some 7-year-old randomly. It's, nothing is random. Nothing.
Well, let me focus on the decision of the Louisville Courier-Journal and other papers and other news outlets to focus on Dr. Dow's troubled past. I thought it was shocking. I thought it was reprehensible.
Even for the Journal?
They had more of a reason than anybody else, and this is kind of, now you get into a situation where everybody's on the Internet, everybody's distributed worldwide. I suppose that within Louisville, a lot of people would have known who he was and remembered that case. But, this made it onto the evening newscast of ABC and NBC, not CBS, and I give them kudos for that.
It was remarkable to see how this story spread. In a very real sense, I think there was a hunger for some story that did not involve Donald Trump. And this sort of filled that void. I agree that there's to the extent that you can defend the Courier-Journal at all, it is the local national question. They were navigating it a little bit differently.
Getting arrested, pulled off in a plane. You'd have to say what her history was.
Right. But that said, as Dan said, it was not limited to the Courier-Journal. The WJLA and the affiliate in Washington, D.C., their reporter tweeted a photo showing, look at all those documents that I've assembled to show the troubled past this guy. She got 5,000 Twitter replies saying, this is completely ludicrous.
One was from me.
There you go.
I said, what is wrong with you?
Exactly. And I think, I'm sitting in Callie's seat. I think Callie would note there is a long and unfortunate tradition in American media when violence is committed by some sort of state or state-like force against an individual, to then have the next round of stories be, well, he was no angel. We've seen that in a lot of police shootings and other violence issues. It's an unfortunate habit that the media just occasionally needs to stop and say, this isn't worth talking about.
Right. And I do agree, because one of the issues is that you don't want to build someone up as sort of this big victim and then find out that it's a criminal who's murdered or whatever it is. So you automatically, it's almost like a reflex. Let's see if there's anything this person has done in the past. The second, though, thing that I think we all fall into this trap is that you're trying to keep a story alive. Yeah. And in this particular case, we have this video that everyone is passing around. So how do you keep the story alive? Well, let's find that secondary story. Did this person do something good or something bad? And I think it gives it a headline another day.
The overbooked flights was a secondary story. Everybody did, which was completely irrelevant.
Right. It's throwing more logs onto the fire to keep it going.
Yeah, I mean, I share everyone's disgust at what the Louisville paper did. If there's any aspect of this victim's past that would be relevant, it would seem to me to be what immediately led up to the video we saw. That's the problem with smartphone video or video of any kind. It has a beginning and an end, and sometimes things happen beforehand. Was he disruptive in some way? That would be relevant. I think the most telling and disturbing thing from a media conduct standpoint was an editor with the Louisville paper reacting to the criticism said, well, this guy's past was well known in the community. It would have looked bad if we hadn't bothered to mention it. Oh, really? So because you're concerned that detail might show up on the web or even on a competitor, and you might take heat for not having shared that detail, you're going to bully yourself into doing something that's ethically dubious. That's not
I disagree.
Good.
I actually think in this case the Journal Courier did the right thing. They put something in context, John. This is a guy.
How's that context?
No, because he's somebody who had been in the news day. I used the example of Annie Duquesne. If she was free from jail and then got thrown off an airplane, of course she would mention the fact that she was the one who tainted hundreds of thousands of drug tests.
Part of it is this flattening.
It's not an obituary.
No, but you would.
But you can't ignore something that your community knows, right? If they have been in the news
if there was no internet, if this was only appearing in a print paper, you can imagine that detail would appear on the inside page at the bottom of the third leg of type in 2 paragraphs. That could be an appropriate way to do that. Right. But online, not only do you lose the distance between local and national audiences, that becomes the screaming headline.
What's the headline? That was, and they did change they changed the headline, but
the reaction.
So I'm proven right in the end.
And they tweeted it was breaking news, which was not.
Right.
And then it spread to the tabloid online media. Right. I mean, TMZ's treatment of this was particularly tasteful and sensitive.
Really.
As always.